Hi, and welcome to the show today. I'm going to be sharing with you something that happened to me just last night with my 17-year-old son. He came home from school and I was just chit-chatting to him, and I noticed that his mood was just down. He just wasn't quite his usual cheery self. And that's okay. It's okay to not be happy, happy, happy all the time. But when I asked him, "Hey, what's up?" And he went, nothing. And I was thinking, oh, normal kind of teenage reaction. And something in me, my spidey sense, just sensed that there was more to this beneath the surface. So what I was seeing on the surface was a slightly kind of disconnected and bland boy. And remember in one of the previous episodes where I talked about the iceberg, and what we see is only a fraction of what's going on. So when you think of your child's behavior, think of it in terms of the iceberg, that the tip is just a fraction of the entire thing. So what I was seeing, his being slightly off, was a sign to me that there was way more going on beneath the surface. Now, it wasn't the time to just crash in and ask him and expect him to go deeper, because I had sensed there was something up. So I sat in the kitchen with him. We chit-chatted. I think I prepped some dinner or something. And I said, I get the impression there's a bit more going on than you're letting me know. And he said, yeah, I just feel a bit stressed by it all. And he's in grade 12, and he is trying to work out what he's going to do next year when he leaves school. And we had been in a meeting earlier on where he had filled in a couple of applications for colleges. So in his mind, he was thinking, gosh, I've applied to these colleges. I'm going to have to do really well in order to get into them. So he'd already started to set his expectations for things that he was worried he wouldn't be able to meet. So we chatted and we chatted and we chatted, and he ended up in tears. And I sat with him in his pain. I talked about this last week on the podcast as well. Watching your child suffer, watching them be in emotional pain and turmoil is so hard. But it's something that we have to become comfortable sitting with them in. And because I am quite comfortable sitting in it with my kids, they are happy to sit in it with me. So I'm there by their side, I'm guiding them, I'm supporting them. I didn't barrage them with a lot of questions. I allowed the silence to nourish him and prevent myself from just going in and trying to fix it, because as mums we want to just fix the problems. We want to just say to them, oh, you'll be okay, don't worry about it. Everyone else is in the same boat. And I always think, when I'm in that boat, it's nice to know you're not alone, but it's actually highly irritating for me when all somebody does is try and say, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. It'll all work out. Because in the moment, you're not there yet. So I had to ask myself, what can I do to help him see that? And just, hitting him with that sentence, I knew wouldn't keep him in the space we were in. It would have just moved us right out of it. And the growing and learning for him was being in it, as painful as it was for him. He had to be in that moment. And the moment took as long as it was going to take for him to come through it. And all sorts of things came out of that conversation. And yes, I know with my wisdom that all the things he was mentioning are things that he will work out. He will manage to find a way through it all. But he was overwhelmed, truly overwhelmed in the moment. So I sat with him in his overwhelm. And I shared with him that I remember feeling exactly the same way at exactly the same time in my life, because I do. I think we can probably all remember that moment in high school where you realize, holy shit, my whole life depends on what I'm doing right now. A lot's going to depend on my English result, my math result, my art result. He's got behind in his art. He wants to do graphic design, and he is behind by a couple of pieces. So I helped him realize that it won't actually take him that much time to catch up. So once he was through the big emotion, and he dealt with the angst and the sadness and the pain he was suffering, he moved through it. And I said to him, when you're in those moments, you can't see the wood for the trees. You can't see the next step because the next step's just too big. So once we were kind of through that, I helped him see that actually catching up on 2 pieces of art, he can do this weekend. In that moment, he was thinking, I will never be able to do it. I will never have enough time because by next weekend, I'm going to have more math and more geography, and I'm going to have another English thing. And then I've got to fill in that thing for the university. And he was literally, his little brain was just bursting. So I helped him break it all down into smaller steps. And I said, tonight, what are we going to do? So back to the present moment. Because if I'd let myself run with his fear, I'd have been useless for him, because when I'm in fear, I'm not present. So if I'd gone down that route thinking, oh my goodness, I wonder if he's going to get it done, because of course that was going through my head. It was. But I had to detach from those thoughts and stay in the present moment so I could meet his needs. And he needed me to help him find a way through last night. He had, I think it was 5:30. He had 5 hours left of the day. And I said, you'll be amazed. You know what you can do in 5 hours. So what are you going to do? So we came up with a plan for those 4 hours, and he nailed it. I went to bed before him. I always do. But he woke up this morning and he'd done everything he set out to do in those 4 hours last night when we chunked it and brought it back into a manageable, bite-sized piece that he could cope with. Now today is another day. And today he can chunk his time and do what he needs to do to feel like he's back on top of things. So I share this with you because there are moments that we all go through with our kids. Our kids will go through these phases. And I said to him, life isn't all a bed of roses. You've had fun, you've been out, you've been doing all sorts of things, and you neglected a few things in that. That's okay. But you have to realize that if you have this, you also have this. You have the leftovers, you have the remnants. So you have to hold both of them and know that sometimes you're having a blast and sometimes life is positively shitty. And in the shitty times, that's when you have to dig deep. So he learned a huge lesson last night. He learns a huge lesson in every moment that life gives him. But he was open to it, and I was open to him. And I shut down all my fearful thoughts and allowed myself to be present to meet his needs. It's a really powerful thing to do. And I urge you to watch your mind when you're in the conversations like these with your kids, so that when you're going down the wrong path, you're going down the fear path, you're going down it's natural to worry about your kids path. Do that on your own. Work out what those are in moments where you're not with them. Because when you're in that thought process, you can't be present. You cannot give them what they need. If I was fearful and triggered by my own fear for him, I wouldn't be able to have helped him work through his fears in the moment. So a really powerful tool, wanted to share it with you because I know that when we share our stories, it really helps us all navigate our way through life with our kids. Thanks so much for listening.